you were released by WWE on April 15th, 2020. I was
Yes.
let go by my employer on April 16th. And
Oh, there you
obviously,
go.
this happened just weeks after COVID took over the world and completely changed the industries that we both work in. So, kind of going back to that time, what was it like to receive back news, and what was your immediate reaction?
I did not see it coming leading up to that, but that morning, at the time worked for WWE. All of the talent got a video message from Vince McMahon, basically saying that there would be some cuts. And once we got that message, I knew, okay, I'm probably going to be one of the guys on that list. I didn't know for sure. A year prior, WWE had offered, I'd say, pretty much everybody a new 5-year contract with significantly more money. But I did not sign that contract because I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay or go. I mean, my career is well documented, a lot of highs, a lot of lows. And at that time, I just wasn't sure, like, do I want to stick around here? Or do I want to stay here for another 5 years? I wasn't sure. And for an entire year, I'd be back and forth negotiating. The anxiety was weighing on me. Do I stay? Do I go? What do I do? Ultimately, the decision was made for me. If I wasn't released in April, my contract would have been up in August. So that morning when, Brian Myers gets the call, guys like Heath, Gallows, Anderson, I still had not gotten the call yet. And I was thinking to myself, oh my God, are they just going to let me rot until August? At that point, I was like, please call me and fire me, please. So at least I can get my life started.
Yeah.
So the call eventually came and I needed it. The weight was lifted off my shoulder. That anxiety, do I stay, do I go, was ultimately taken away instantly because the decision was made for me. There was no more, what should I do? Do I want to stay here? Do I want to try something else? Like, it was made for me. And then my back was against the wall and it was sink or swim at that point. I needed it and I was ready for it. And I knew I was going to capitalize on it. Except the problem was, like you said, we were living in this global pandemic. We didn't know what this world was. There was nowhere to instantly go wrestle. There was no independent wrestling scene. The whole world was shut down. What was I going to do for money? Luckily, I had the major Wrestling for a podcast, like you had mentioned earlier, to keep me afloat, bills wise. But I wasn't quite sure what my next step would be in the wrestling world.
I mean, you're someone who's obviously always kind of carved out this real niche in the online world, and you had all these different kind of creative projects going on at the same time. So I guess you're in slightly a different position from some of your other kind of colleagues in WWE when you were let go.
Sure. Even my partner, Brian Myers, partner in the podcast, right? I mean, he had signed that 5-year contract a year prior. So he's getting this big fat paycheck. His wife quits her job. They get pregnant with their second kid, and then boom, he gets the call. So he's in a totally different position than me. He's got this family, a new child on the way. For me, I don't have a family. I mean, obviously I have a family, but I don't have kids to support. At the time it was just my fiance and some cats. So I was in a way safer position where I wasn't worrying about having to feed other people. So I was fortunate in that regard. So, and there are plenty of other people, there are people who were released that day who haven't really done much of anything in the wrestling business since then. But this might sound harsh, but I have no sympathy for them because we all had the opportunity to make names for ourselves. And we all had the opportunity to go out there and bet on ourselves. Some people did, some people didn't.
Yeah, no, I've heard you say in another interview that there's only 3 things in the wrestling business that you can control, being your gear, your physique, and your attitude. So talk to me about how you started to take back control in 2020. How did you approach this reinvention of Matt Cardona?
Well, that was the interesting part, right? Because as crazy as this may sound, I wasn't necessarily comfortable with the name Matt Cardona. For so long, I was Zack Ryder, right? Luckily, I had started that podcast while in WWE, and I had learned through starting a YouTube show in 2011 that even if WWE doesn't come up with it, if you do it while you're under contract using their IP, intellectual property, it instantly becomes theirs. So I went through that with my YouTube show, basically getting taken away from me. So I knew when we started this podcast, even though we were working in WWE, we had to make sure it wasn't Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins Wrestling Figure Podcast. It had to be Matt Cardona and Brian Myers. And I'm so glad I used my real name for the podcast because once I was released, I was like, well, I don't have to think of some weird gimmick name. I could just be me, Matt Cardona. So the name was easy. But like I said, we were living this pandemic. There were no shows going on. What was I going to do? So that was really scary. I knew I needed a change. I knew I needed a fresh coat of paint. But what was it going to be? I didn't have the game plan, instantly. I definitely did not. It was a work in progress for sure.